19th meeting to order. We have quorum. We typically move through the items in the order they're listed on the agenda. We have one item on our agenda towards the end. That is the City of Burlington High School application. This was marked for, the staff recommended this for consent. We did not publish a consent order. Wondering if any members of the board have an issue treating it as a consent agenda item, whether they have any questions for the applicant on it. It's a very minor change to the scope of the project. Anybody? No issues? No. All right, so I would move that we, is there anyone in the public here to speak on the VHS application?
If you'd like to speak on the application, raise your hand, please.
No, it's a
No.
raised.
All right, so the applicant here? VHS, Joe? Do you have any issue, have you looked at the staff's findings and conclusions?
Yes.
Any issues?
No.
Right, so I move that on ZP 23-536, 52 Institute Road, we approve the application, adopt staff's findings and recommendations. Chase seconds, all those in favor? Chase. Aye. You good?
All right, thank you.
All right. So the next item on our agenda for public hearing is ZAP 2312-123 King Street. Appeal of administrative zoning denial to enlarge second-story balcony. Is the applicant here or is the appellant here? Come on up. Yeah. So can I get everyone who wants to speak on this item to raise their right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give is true and correct under the pains and penalties of perjury? All right, so you're Charles?
Yes.
Charles, in an appeal, we typically have the city go first and explain the basis for the denial and the reasoning, and then we'll give you an opportunity to respond and outline why you think they're wrong.
I will speak on behalf of the project manager who's not here tonight. As outlined in the staff report, the application came in October. It was reviewed administratively. The property is listed on both the state of Vermont Register of Historic Places and within the Battery King Street Historic District. At issue is the small second-story porch that's under the eaves. The application proposes to expand that around to the front of the house. That was seen to be in the staff report in conflict with at least two standards within section 548 for changes to the historic character of a property and new additions, exterior alterations, and related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. There was some back and forth discussion about proposed materials, which remained unclear, but staff found the application inconsistent with the standards of section 548, and it was denied administratively and appealed in a timely fashion.
Okay, can you walk us through what those standards are, Mary, that they're inconsistent?
Under section 548B, standard 2, the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. And under section 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment.
And the city's position was that since the porches are called out in the architectural Vermont historic standards, then that the alterations or quote was really particularly
In specifically in the Vermont standards as well as the National Register, that second story porch is singularly identified in the building description.
What was the date that, you know, when that was called out?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
77, days of 899.
Mary, when we have looked at those historical standards before, because the documentation is done, like a lot of those documentations were done. 70s or, you know, it was the state of the home at the time. Is that taken then as the evidence of the original state of the home? Or like, why is that the description that is?
The description records what is present at the time that the assessment is made. The National Register was, the Battery King Street district was written in 1977. It was revised in 1984, and this building was included in the 84. Essentially, it was an expansion of the district. More buildings were included. So I have this in front of me, so I'm going to see if I can share this with you. Anyways, I do have the building description from 1984, and it does include the second story porch.
And there, it looks like in the drawing that there's proposed first floor porch expansion as well. That's not an issue.
The first floor porch was expanded under an earlier permit, and there was documentary evidence to show that it had been original and was removed. So that was replaced with a permit.
And so the interpretation by the city is that expanding the second floor porch is destroying the character because one piece of railing is away or because it changes how it relates to the first floor. Can you just explain that?
In both of the register listings, there is a narrative describing the appearance, the characteristics, the components of the building. The second story porch has remained a constant in both of those listings. It's a primary facade. It's the street front, which is given the highest priority because that's what the public sees and experiences. So an alteration to a primary facade is a challenging thing to do unless there's documentary evidence that it existed prior to the listing.
Eric, the application is really just to do with the second floor porch.
It's just to do with the second floor porch.
The expansion of the first floor porch is not an issue.
It is not subject to your appeal review tonight.
The other question I had, Mary, is about the call out for the material usage where it was explicitly stated that pressure treated lumber is not permitted. I thought we had talked about that on the board before, that materials that were very similar, but just were more durable were acceptable.
The board has made prior decisions relative to materials on porches. There has been an allowance or flexibility to allow for composite materials in some of the components. The decisions of this board prior to today have allowed for pressure treated for superstructure. Obviously, pressure treated lumber looks differently and ages differently than typical dimensional lumber. So pressure treated has been allowed for superstructure, i.e. what's not seen but is supportive. Wrapping material should be traditional materials. Posts have been required to be traditional. Railings have required to be traditional materials. Decking composite has been an allowance by the DRB. So we're going by the decisions that this board has made in the past.
And where was the pressure treated lumber proposed in this project?
My understanding, it was suggested in the application materials, but there was no further definition if there was a commitment towards that.
And this is after the fact permit, right? So some of the work has been started.
It's not my understanding. I'm sorry, I'm assuming the management of this in the absence of Scott.
Questions from the board? Okay, floor is yours.
Is there a time limit? I mean, and I have things to do, I don't wanna take up too much time, just wanna be aware.
I'll say this. We can all read,
Okay,
we've read your letter. We're certainly aware of some of the issues you point out about the confusing nature of the online permitting system and the difficulties that individuals like yourselves have encountered in trying to navigate our relatively complex zoning.
okay,
We're well aware of that.
okay,
We've also read your letter and I'll
I won't rehash.
speed you along as necessary.
Okay, so just. Really quickly, when this, I have two concerns, one is this, and the other one before I leave should be pretty short, but. In relation to that directly, I wanna make sure that I'm doing the right thing, which is why I've had so many permits out, I've come here so many times. There is confusion, and it's kind of a mess at this point. I am very cognizant and respectful of history. The entire project that I've taken on has been to get this back as close to original as possible, including the paint job that I've started undertaking that had to halt because of confusion with the lead-based standards, which is why there's still vinyl siding on some of it. And the bottom, most of the bottom part is painted. I got historic colors from Benjamin Moore, whole 9 yards. The cornices that are there that are original, I've taken them off. A lot of them were broken, cracked. I've been repairing them, replacing them as I could. One of the things to point out in those pictures, the posts are original. Actually had to reappropriate a couple posts when the wraparound porch was taken off at some point. The house next door, these belonged to Jesse. He had them over there kind of laying around, and one was in use. I got them back, so we can put them back. But the bottom of those posts they're just shot. So I had to cut them off and use pressure treated blocks to stand those posts back on. The bottom of those posts will be, again, covered with trim like they originally had been, but like that's the kind of nuance throughout the whole project that I'm cognizant of but confused by in terms of materials. So the material aspect, the proposal of the second floor, I'm not asking for, I don't want pressure treated wood up there. There was pressure treated wood up there. I removed that, and then I was told I had to put back what was there, but then subsequent correspondences were original materials. The way the weather comes up from the west, the lakeside, there's constantly snow drifts, and it's just, it was a mess. I would like to seal that off better and use the same style of composite wood look decking that's on the bottom, that when you see from the street, absolutely cannot tell in color, style. It would look the same.
Yeah, I think I understand that. I mean, we hear the materials issues quite a bit, and I think the thing that we'll probably struggle most with is the alteration from the single
Yep.
porch to the wraparound.
Okay, so I'll transition to that. What you see there, right there, that is just framing for the ceiling. I'll put an original style tongue and groove pine sky blue painted ceiling that was common at that time. That's what that's there for. Before I started the porch roof, which is accepted in the application. When I got up there, I had to remove that entire section of the balcony because it was just mush. So when I did that, I ran across some interesting things, and while I'm up there looking around, the basis of my argument is this. The call outs are from the 70s and 80s, and one map excerpt from around 1950. With all due respect, I'm not speaking to anybody here, that to me seems irrelevant, because at that time, what's widely accepted as the original appearance of the property had a wraparound porch. I can also tell you that in removing the rotted materials from the singular bay that's called out in the seventies, which is well after this house was hacked into a duplex. Most of the original features on the outside were removed that I'm trying to put back. That you can tell the original joists for carrying that deck were cut like hacked. So some were several inches longer and shorter than the other.
Can I ask you a
Yep.
clarification? When you talk about wraparound porch, are you talking about the second floor or the first floor?
The first, so the first floor had a wraparound porch because this was a singular residence.
I think
So
your wraparound porch on the
Yep.
porch on the first floor, you got a permit for that,
Yep.
it's all set.
Yep, so I can tell this was called out in the seventies, then in 84, I believe, as this single bay porch at
On the second floor.
on the second floor, which is being discussed right now, was absolutely bigger than it was now. I have no idea how much bigger it was, but you can tell where the floor joists.
So if we go back to the photo with the
Yeah,
joists,
my best guess is that it extended past that window. Maybe a foot, maybe 5 feet.
but it didn't, there's nothing on there where you, when you took off the siding, you saw old post connections on the second story wrapping all the way around.
I did not, because there's plywood there where they had taken off the entire original. And I think it was due to rot, but also due to the covered wraparound porch.
And there's no evidence that you've seen that prior to the forties or the fifties, there was a wraparound porch in the second story. Like, there's no reference in
No.
1899 it's wraparound second story.
And
And are you saying you think that porch extended past that window?
yes,
It's hard to see how that would happen given the roof. There's a roof, having the porch extend past that roof seems, you know,
and that's, I would agree, in the section 548, the 2 and the 9, that are quoted here. If you drive around Burlington, you see there's a lot of second floor balconies that are exposed and open. Typically above entry doors in more Victorian houses. I don't know how much it extended. It honestly, to me, looks like it was cut off to be tucked under, so I can imagine maybe there was an issue with weather. That when, at some point, when any of the renovations were done, it was tucked back under there. I think what I'm proposing is compatible with historic design based on other properties around the city. Even if it doesn't need, even if it can't be extended to come around, extended in some way for aesthetics, safety, usability, maintenance, all those issues, I feel should be taken into consideration because all of them are compromised with what it is now.
I'm just curious, what's the benefit of having a wraparound second story? Is there, just trying to understand why.
So, honestly, number one would be usability, to be able to have usable outdoor space. Number two, it's another means of egress, which is why I wanted to wrap it around to begin with. The 2 windows that you can, well, in this picture, the 2 windows you can see are separate rooms. There was another window that used to be there that's not there anymore. It's in a closet now. But also for maintenance, it's almost impossible to open that door in the wintertime to get out there to shovel and maintain it. It's next to impossible to get out there to do any kind of paint repair, maintain the railings. It's a phone booth.
Is this still a 2-unit building, and so is
Yes.
that would be the only outdoor space for that unit, is that what you're trying to achieve?
Yes,
and out of curiosity, the post there that's on the first floor.
yes.
Do you suspect that that's in the original location?
In the original location, it's close. I had to move it out some,
Out away from the building?
yes. Because again, the original wraparound porch, I don't know the dimensions of, so when I applied for
first floor wrapper.
the first floor wraparound porch, I didn't know the dimensions, so. I guesstimated, but to be able to carry the. Carrying beam for the rafters, that's where the post has to go, so it's. I guess laterally, looking at the house, it's very close to where it was. But again, original, I don't know. I'm also being an amateur historian in architecture and done a lot of old building remodels. I'm having a hard time figuring out why, or if there was originally two entrances. There had to be to have a wraparound porch. But I think my best guess is originally given what I see inside with some tampering of the trim, I think that window to the left, what might have been the actual door, but I don't know for sure.
I mean, I think you've laid it out pretty well for us, so I think we understand the issue.
The current second floor porch is 8x7, correct?
No. No, that's including the roof line. I believe, but I think it's only 7x5.
7 feet along the house and 5 feet away.
Away, yes. Which would have to be, that part would have to be expanded regardless because of the profile of the new approved roof line for the first floor.
So if this application was denied, it might be like 7x7 sort of thing, 7x6 for that second floor porch.
I mean, I can put the floor spacing back where it was if I had to. But yeah, ideally, I would have it accepted from if I can't, and it was only part of the way, halfway past the window, whatever, anything that's a little bigger and more usable would be in my book. So I can make it exactly the way it is in that picture, but it's, to the reasons I stated, it's not ideal.
This question, we don't have a copy of whatever's been approved, I don't believe, for the first floor.
No, not on an appeal.
No, but it's impacting what you're saying is the roof. There's a roof over that first floor.
Yeah, it was a covered wraparound
Well,
porch.
that's what your permit is for now.
Yes,
To have a covered first floor porch.
yes. So the roof, the
So
space
that-
up there is already there.
So that new roof that we see in that photograph, the framing for that was in that photograph there a second ago, wherever that is that right there.
Yep,
That's part of the approved new
roof,
roof.
that the ceiling of the roof.
Yeah, but it's the.
Yes, yep.
So. That roof is gonna slope back, it's hipped around the corner, I take it. Does it go around the corner?
It does, but that's the ceiling, that's not the
Right.
roof line.
Just the
Yeah.
roof itself.
Yep.
Goes around the corner, it's hipped on both sides.
Yep.
And it's gonna rise up and come in underneath that window, I assume.
Yes,
Is it higher than the roof that's on the existing second floor balcony? The slope of the new roof, or that roof, is gonna end up coming up higher than the roof on the existing second floor balcony. Can you go back to the other?
the little sections, the
Yeah.
L section around it.
Okay, yeah, okay, right there. The thing that's circled there, that little roof there is
Yeah.
gonna get bigger because that's where your roof is now, is coming out further. From the second.
So the slope from this side of the house out towards Brown's Court
Yeah,
would have to be, it's about a foot bigger than it is now
does it
to,
come up higher than that then?
yeah, it has to, and that's part of with
So now
the,
you're gonna have a little bathtub up there.
right. What's that?
You have a bathtub up there.
Right, but that's,
You want a bathtub up, you know what I mean?
right, but again, originally. This was a covered wraparound porch, which is why, again, I do not believe that the covered wraparound porch went up to this small
But you
section.
don't have any information on that covered wrap porch. porch, you think it was there.
No, but nobody else does either.
No,
Yeah.
well,
Well, it is in the Sanborn map that there was one,
Not a wraparound.
not on the second. No, the first
I
one.
was first,
Yeah.
but it doesn't say was it covered or not.
There's actually a picture.
I mean, it's approved thinking at some level, like.
I understand, but it impacts the whole thing we're talking about in terms of the second floor,
Right,
in terms of the size of the porch and how the
Right.
roof is gonna work and how big this thing is. Because if you make it the same size it is now and you have this bigger roof, you're gonna have water sitting in there all the time, that's why I say you're gonna have a bathtub.
right, and which is exact, which is part of my argument, but also part of why I do believe that that section was bigger. Because originally, we know that there was a wraparound porch there. Where the plywood is up to under that window is roughly where the top of the roof line was. I think it was only probably 6 or 8 inches below the windowsill. And that it would not have made sense for that tiny insert to have been there originally. I think it was longer. Came out.
I'm still trying to understand the application. The application now is you wanna build a second floor porch on top of this approved roof that you have.
In lieu of.
In lieu of, yes. So that, but you're not gonna put a roof over the second floor.
No,
other than the
I'm
existing.
leaving the roof the way it is.
Yeah, okay. And you're supporting the second floor porch, just so
Yeah, on top of
you know, propose something first floor. Yeah.
I'm adding,
It's
I'm
not,
actually trying to find somebody to mill the exact profile of the posts that are there now. I have enough for that side, but then I wouldn't have enough to be identical for the space.
Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak on this one?
If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. No one?
Being here want to speak? Not you, I know you know. Okay. Charles, we've heard a lot about that. I appreciate that. Is there any other issues you want to bring up?
Specific to the second floor porch or in general with the project scope is.
Just specific to the second floor, because that's all we really have.
so I guess I'm just gonna, so your intention is as much as possible to have the finished materials of this, whatever it ends up being approved, is to match what you can figure out was original to the house in terms of the spindles of the porch railings and the newel posts and all that other kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So if you have this pressure treated piece, you're gonna wrap it with something that's, they make a little bit bigger, but it's gonna.
Yeah, and I don't foresee having pressure treated pieces unless I'm allowed to have pressure treated stuff that gets painted. But otherwise, the railings,
Doesn't paint one.
the new stuff does, because it's not arsenic.
Yeah.
So, but I can use whatever for that piece, the structure, the supports, that stuff, in my opinion, needs to be more than just softwood. Because paint is.
Well,
Safety issue.
appreciate the presentation and we're gonna deliberate on it tonight.
Okay.
We'll take it under consideration. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your
Now,
time.
for hearing this one. Last on our agenda is State University of Vermont Agricultural College, UVM, application, I can't find the number,
CP 23530.
certificate of appropriateness for the construction of 10 parking spaces. The applicant here,
Yes.
and I'm sure your team is as well. Anyone who wants to speak on this application, please raise your right hand.
Can you just note that Claire Forbes is it's online and she's also.
Yes, we got 2 people with their hands up online. Claire Forbes. Galaxy S.
Let's hear a question. Jay Robinson, is that part of your team? No? Okay,
It's just Claire that we know of.
Claire.
Yes.
Right, well, all those who want to speak on this application, raise your right hand, and do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter under consideration is true and correct and contains facts? Yes, I do. All right, well, whoever would like to explain the project to us, seems relatively simple. You're adding 10 parking spaces and you're converting that lot to a paved, landscaped, non-gravel. The state doesn't want us to have gravel for stormwater management purposes anymore, parking lot.
Sorry.
Why don't you take this and then you want to introduce yourself and just,
So I think
See everyone.
Claire is really the project manager.
All right.
for this, So
Claire, why don't you
should I do that?
take the digital seat and explain the project to us in case anyone has any questions?
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Claire Forbes, Associate Planner at UVM, 31 Spears Street, Burlington, Vermont. So for this project, UVM is proposing to improve and expand our existing physical plant compound lot from 80 spaces to 108, and creating an additional 10 space row on the south side of University Road. The parking lot, as you know, is located on the north side of University Road and west of the Centennial Baseball Field. The parking lot will allow UVM more flexibility to shift parking needs on main campus for priorities such as housing and sharing resources with the UVM Medical Center. The project is included in the city-approved 2023 to 2028 Joint Institutional Parking Management Plan. And you've probably seen the plan, so I just wanted to sort of address a couple of the conditions in the staff report, if that's okay.
Sure.
Is there
Go ahead.
anything else you wanted, kind of general information about the parking lot?
Board? Why don't you just go take us where you think we need to go?
Okay, so there are some conditions in the staff report, so we just wanted to address those. So a portion of the project includes widening of the University Road. So because of the space limitations, there's not enough width to add a sidewalk along the whole roadway. So the plan here was to widen the road. University Road was recently repaved. So during that repaving, there was an issue with the subbase that was discovered that necessitated rebuilding some of it. So as the future plans were to widen the road for pedestrian safety within the next year, the construction team made a decision to widen the road concurrently with the repaving work to prevent rebuilding and ripping up everything again to widen in the future, to really minimize that burden for the residential neighbors. And so that was not the original plan. So the reason we want to widen the road is to dedicate a 4-foot stripe along the north side to provide space for pedestrians, mainly for safety reasons. Currently, we have hospital workers, UVM employees, game patrons, and members of the public that walk along both sides of the road, which can be very dangerous. Also wanted to mention there is a new residential building that was added at 5 University Road. I think it's shown right there on the plan. And so as part of that development, a driveway and a sidewalk were added within that right of way. So that increased the nonconformity of that RL zone, which we're talking about here. So we're just asking for the same sort of request for access along here. This area has been institutional use for decades, so that's how it's been used historically. We did see the comments from DPW, and we will certainly work with them on coordinating any future changes to the road to align with any upcoming improvements near East Avenue. So we're requesting that the conditions to revise the site plan to show no increase to lot coverage, and the condition to remove any paving not be included in the final decision making. And again, the reason is the additional widening is for pedestrian safety. So we just really want to provide that dedicated space for them. In this area.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I jumped to something that I wasn't sure I understood. So your proposal places you over the lot coverage limitations, is that right?
Yes. Yes, so the majority of this parking lot and all of that is in an institutional zoning district. And there's a little piece just along the roadway, kind of that lines up with the other residential properties. That is a residential low density zone. So that is where the lot coverage issue comes to play. And we were already at 80-something%, and we increased a little bit to 89%. So it was already non-conforming. It was never a conforming lot there for lot coverage.
Mary, can I ask you a question about that?
Absolutely.
So that makes it a split lot zoning, right? And that's Bove Pasta had that
Absolutely.
quite extensively, right?
The Bove decision that went to the Supreme Court determined that in parcel split by zoning districts, each section of the parcel must adhere to the dimensional standards within its own district.
Do we have a lot coverage waiver ability?
They could ask for a variance.
And then that gets another question, is under 24 VSA 4413. As a state municipal, as a state organization, we have a limited scope of review
Lot
authority, but lot coverage is one of those.
Correct. This is not an accepted street. It's not public right of way. It's a private parcel.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is University Road it's not deeded to the city, it's a private drive, it's driveway basically.
Yeah, it's owned by UVM, correct?
Taxpayer driveways on it. Public driveways, private.
We do have a.
Well, that's your easement issue, not
Oh, yeah.
not mine, right?
Oh, sure.
We do have a member from the Department of Public Works here if you wish to call him.
Probably.
Well, where's the line between the districts? I'm confused how it's
Where-
80%.
Where it kind of expands, once you're pulling down the driveway, they draw a straight line connecting the short part of those two parcel lines right there.
It's a very, very narrow triangle.
Do you have any other?
Got it.
So everything
It's
to the
not
left of
residential.
that expansion is considered residential, so within that small roadway parcel where beyond lot coverage,
Mary can share the.
there's some parcel within. it.
Okay, so it's not to do with the parking lot, it's just the
No,
road.
it's the roadway expansion, because what ends up happening is all the pedestrians kind of get up to the road. There's no dedicated space to kind of shift the cars over, so then you have somebody kind of blocking that right turn down, so. By pushing that up there, even though there's an alignment issue mentioned, it allows for kind of an earlier curve to get out of the way. To let them kind of pass through.
So it's
Sets up
80%, because it's literally just the road.
That's the road.
Clarification on this, what I mentioned with sidewalk. No, there's not room for a sidewalk, so you're writing the
Yeah,
street.
just strike.
Is there a sidewalk prior to the start of this project in front of those houses? It looks like it may be on the west side, is that the west
Along
side?
the east side of East Avenue, there's. a
No,
sidewalk.
no, on University,
Not
like,
in.
there's no sidewalk there at all. So rather than put a sidewalk in, you'd rather make the street wider and have people walk in the street.
No,
Sorry, the road is already widened in most places. It was just selective widening to make it an even width all the way through the corridor.
Okay,
So instead of ripping out what's already
I got
there,
it.
we just added to the existing.
so.
Here's the zoning district overlay. The lighter color here is low density residential, blue is institutional. And here is University Road.
Got it.
There's the parcel split
And so it's that little nugget right there that has a lot coverage problem.
right here.
A residential roadway.
All right, well. That's a problem.
But the lot coverage increases because you're evening out the width of the
Just
road,
making.
because some of it's already that width.
One side of the driveway is full width, the other isn't, that isn't. The historic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a historic gravel driveway that's sort of been.
Added on over the years and.
Around.
Right, and with the hospital pedestrian traffic through there, just trying to, eventually we'll get to. Having conversations with the city about the alignment on the south side of East Avenue as it turns in, but. The traffic inwards is. The situation gets better with this proposal and it only gets better with further conversation.
And you said, so with this picture we're looking at, the house that was added, that's not in this picture, right? Did you say there was a sidewalk added as part of that house?
Sidewalk and roadway, so.
walkway to the road.
Yep.
Not a sidewalk,
Got it.
perpendicular
sorry.
to the road and not parallel to the road. And we don't have enough width for a sidewalk that's parallel to the road, so we're gonna strike a 4-foot section.
That was
So the university owns the roadway there,
all the
but
way,
not the houses.
correct. And impervious was increased by the addition of that driveway and roadway, so it's already recently exceeded the residential district by the addition of that as a precedent.
And since that's a private street, that's probably a lot of coverage now.
Correct.
It doesn't exceed the overall, but within that district, when you pull out the rest of the, not, rest of the square footage of the parcel.
I mean, the fact is that the lot coverage would go above the threshold. If it was evened out as proposed.
For the residential.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything in the yellow.
So, all right, let's talk about the parking lot.
Real application.
Well, yeah, why don't you take us through the parking lot?
Claire, can you?
Adam, do you want to, since you're right there?
Claire, go ahead. He wants you to do it.
Certainly can. Historically, it's been a gravel parking lot, part of our parking management. And as Claire mentioned, we have a lot of things in flux. We have parking needs that are constantly changing. And this has been in the dip for quite some time to formalize and just actually get a bit more parking, a bit more organization. And we address stormwater, we address EV charging.
Yeah, we will have additional ADA parking. We'll have spaces for EV parking. We will have lots of honey locust trees, and some along the neighboring, some trees along the neighboring properties. So lots of shading and protection from that. And the hedge along the west side will remain.
The future use is currently planned for hospital.
What's the current use of it?
It's kind of our catch-all for our zone, our maintenance zones. So it's got trailers, snow plows, it's our clocking location, our utility. So this goes also to our bio research parking lot.
Right, because you moved all those people over there.
That's where these guys are coming from, going out to bio. And then UVMMC may take additional parking down there. I'm not entirely privy to those full details, but I believe the plan is UVMMC goes down there. So that's part of where the 10 extra spaces came in after our grounds, all their plow stuff is under the bleachers at Centennial. So we're keeping plow trucks and more of our grounds vehicles for the 10 extra spaces off to the side. So those will remain service vehicles.
And those plow trucks and everything are now currently driving in and out on University Place.
Road, yep.
University Road, sorry.
Yep, they go into the compound, they grab their trucks from there,
That's historically, when was that University Road laid out?
The original, Centennial's been there 100 years.
But it's existed in this condition for 20 years.
There's been kind of a mixed history where it was one lane, and then it got one additional lane, then it kind of got some.
University Place.
Yeah.
Derek might have. You have any-
When the road came in?
How long it's existed.
In this condition that it's in now.
I think it was paid in 2007.
But before that was gravel.
Yeah, that was.
Did it pay the Burlington electric improvements that came through, is that what you're saying? That was.
Oh, maybe it was 2012. It was paved at some point. It was historically.
Yes, we paved the bottom part from the parking lot just south in 2012. It was paved from where the 10 spaces east, that was paved in 2012 before it's been gravel for each one side. Thanks.
I have a question for Claire about an email from Chris Clow. So I just want to indicate, so this lot, he had said was not serving new or additional traffic, so you don't need a traffic study because it's serving existing traffic. Is that accurate still? Because that's an old email from April.
Yeah, for the majority, we're not sure of who will be the users, so we can't definitively say, but it's, we're basically thinking about we think about our parking as a master plan. So it may just be moving some vehicles, like you said about bio research, many of them are moving over, and the way the state views those vehicles, they're already having traffic impacts around campus, so they would not be new users. So those, just depending on who is parking there. And even if there were some new people coming from a different place, the maximum would be 30, 38 or 28, because we wouldn't have those 10 would still be physical plant vehicles. So, and he did indicate that anything under 75 would not trigger the traffic impact study. So even if at a maximum we had the 28 or 38, it wouldn't impact that.
Okay.
So are you doing new curves on your, no, you're just widening it, but not curves? The curves shown is on the parking lot.
Yes.
For the University Road in the residential district issue, have you explored other avenues? For example, talking with the city about transferring that to be a real road?
That's a. I think the university has vested interest in keeping it, but I can't speak to that. Yeah, project manager for parking lot.
Yeah, we have not approached that subject.
Yeah, yes, on the show.
I can fill in a little bit if that's appropriate.
You?
The city does have a procedure to accept currently non-accepted roads. There are standards that would need to be met in doing so, so it's not a quick process. But we do have some allowance for existing conditions, so if that was something
now,
not before us now and would require much more conversations and review. We were really curious if the EV charging spaces were going to be publicly available or for private use.
That's an ongoing conversation, but as of right now, it depends on who it gets rented to. If it's the hospital, it's parking and transportation as of right now. My understanding is they're approaching the hospital to take it. I think they want it, but if it's them, then it's their discretion as to who's in their space.
So can I just note something? There's a case, it's your parking. It's not a public parking.
Right.
So that may bear on what those chargers are used for, allow for.
We can certainly
There's
dictate.
plenty of landowners in this town who have perhaps tried to rent spaces out and that were not for their approved land use, and that didn't go so well for them. So this is a UVM parking lot, not a. So if chargers go in, they're not for, to be clear, they're not like, if one of us can go charge our EV up there, that would be not a UVM related use.
So this parking lot has people, I think actually Claire maybe wanted, she has a hand up here, so I don't know if she wants to.
Her hand's been up.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So the parking lot has, sometimes it's, I don't know if it's even any UVM employees or it's UVM Medical Center employees, but in general, it's paid parking. And it's for, right now, it's for institution, it's not, it's public parking when there's a baseball game, we do what we can to have.
I understand that, but I wanna be clear that if you put an EV charger in, someone who's not on site for a UVM medical center or baseball game or something like that, this is not a parking lot for them to go use. It's not parking for rent, two individuals around the area.
To my knowledge, we're not intending to run a gas station.
I appreciate that, but anything there, it's people are parking for their use.
Right, it's UVMMC, and possibly if Trinity ever happens, we're partially setting up to maybe put students there, but
Need to watch that as we go forward, not just you all, but in general.
fair enough. Yeah, no, the EV is all new and it's just 20% as of right now, so that's good to know whether or not what our uses are.
Yeah, we're not planning to change the use
No.
on any of these. From UVM or UVM sanctioned use to just.
That's exactly right.
It's all metered, all permitted, sold. us too much not to.
Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak on this? I mean, it's great you're converting it from gravel, adding stormwater treatment. And it's all pretty good.
Sure.
Yep, we have one hand raised.
Who's,
I believe it's Sharon Busher.
okay? Sharon, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So I live at 52 East Avenue, and as some of you know, I used to represent this ward. And back in the early 90s, Ray Levine was a vice president of the University of Vermont, and University Road was owned by the city and UVM, and Ray Levine convinced me that it was in everyone's best interest for me to advocate that UVM own the entire road. I regret that, advocating for that, but that's how that came about. So it was difficult because it was co-ownership, but I wanted to clarify that. I wanted to say that because it's really very close to my house and that I spend a lot of time watchdogging things in my neighborhood, even though I'm no longer a city councilor, the paving project that the university did was outstanding. It is such a vast improvement because there are a lot of heavy trucks that go up and down that road. And so I want to just applaud them for that improvement, because every time a heavy truck went up and down, it would shake all of the houses around. So that's an improvement. I wanted to concur with them that there is a tremendous amount of pedestrian traffic, not only people accessing vehicles, but people go down that road to sometimes walk around the Centennial Field. They cut through, pedestrians cut through to go over. There's a kind of right angle to go out onto Colchester Avenue. People walk their dogs. It is a favorite place for many to go. So there are a lot of pedestrians. There's never been a sidewalk that's ever been incorporated into that road. It's like Latham Court, which is the dead-end street off of Colchester Avenue that backs up to the parking lot that is being paved now, and that's relevant. That's why I wanted to mention that. But Latham Court, once again, is a small little street that can't accommodate sidewalks. So you do paving, widened paving to delineate safer places for people to walk. I understand that in that paving, I was trying to listen carefully, that they exceeded lot coverage or in the section of the street that is the first 100 feet or whatever, that's RL. And I'm hoping that they ask for a waiver because I feel like it was slight. And I watchdog stuff. I didn't really even notice that. Shame on me, but I didn't. And I feel that no one would gain anything by having them rip that out and make it a little more narrow at the entrance. I just don't feel like. So if there's a way that's legal, I'm not looking for any special favors, but if there's a way that's legal through a waiver, I think that makes the most sense. I do think that any way that UVM can try to delineate a safe, identifiable walkway for pedestrians would be great. That's the road. That's not what you're really dealing with, but that's the road. I wanted to speak to the parking lot. I had a couple of specific statements. One is that because it's now gravel and it's going to paved, I was concerned about runoff. I was concerned about runoff for Latham Court. There are houses that are just about on top of that parking lot. So I wanted to make sure that any stormwater would be addressed. And I saw a response from DPW about the road, but I saw nothing about a stormwater evaluation or permit or review. So that's one thing that I think is absolutely necessary because that will impact people's yards. Number two is that staff has recommended, asked that UVM comply with reducing the light levels. At a minimum, I know that you've got lighting that's shielded, but once again, I mean, if you were, any one of you were to walk to that parking lot and see that you are basically looking in someone's window at where the parking lot ends and the house begins, I want sensitivity to those neighbors that abut this parking lot so that they have quality of life that isn't impacted by any improvements. Now, I support the improvements. That gravel parking lots, I don't imagine is fun to park in or walk in or, you know, whatever. I wasn't clear enough to understand that only some of the vehicles would park there and the rest of the spaces would be potentially for some other entity. The hospital parked there for years, not parked off of University Road for years. I thought some of that still happened, but if that's for the hospital, you know, people park there and then they walk across the street, and that so that's kind of consistent with what's happened in the past. So I wanted to speak about the stormwater permit, wanted to speak about reduced lighting. I was happy to see that that there were some new ADA spaces. I really worry about disability and people not meeting the needs of people that have special needs. So I was glad to see those spaces included. I was also happy to see that even though the expansion occurred, they weren't going to eat into the green, which is a beautiful little green area that everybody enjoys. People play Frisbee. I mean, it's used by a lot of people, including UVM students. But anyways, it's a wonderful little space, and I'm glad it's not taking any additional space. I'm very happy that the cedars are being preserved and more plantings are being done along, I think, the back of the parking lot that abuts Latham Court, once again, for the screening that I think is important for noise. If it's hospital employees, and if they're using it overnight, then that becomes more relevant because of doors opening and closing in the middle of the night. Sound travels, as we all know. Let me see if there's anything else. I was able to speak with Garrett regarding this, and I thank him for being so open and explaining so much to me regarding this. And so I want to go on record as supporting these improvements with the understanding of trying to address impacts by shielding of lights or reduction in lights, planting of vegetation, and also supporting UVM if they choose to ask for that waiver so they don't have to rip up some of the really beautifully paved and well done road that they just put in. Thank you.
I can talk about stormwater.
Sure.
Okay. We have an operational stormwater discharge permit for the project. So by the state, as part of that, we're required to look at additional runoff reduction. So we have underground stormwater chambers designed. It's the big blob. It's in the middle of the parking lot. We've raised the grade of the elevation of the parking lot to get above the water table to meet the stormwater requirements. And so the 1-year storm event will be fully infiltrated with runoff beyond that going to the North Campus Pond. So we will be reducing runoff. It's currently
Are those infiltrated basins under or subsurface detention piping?
They're infiltration chambers, so they'll infiltrate the 1-year storm event.
And 10-year
10-year will flow north. There's a pipe that runs along the north edge of the parking lot and it goes to the North Campus Pond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And currently now, there's really just nothing at surface.
It just flows down.
Yeah.
And on the lighting, I'm double checking now, but I believe the lights can be programmable to stay at 20-40% motion to 100 to get that lumen that's shown on the photometric. So
Well, I mean, we have a specific lumen
The
limitation
minimum,
for parking, don't we, Mary? For candle limitation for parking?
min max.
Yes. Yes, there is.
So
Your specific standards for parking facilities.
And they've met those.
Yes.
We'll have to figure that out.
Claire might have something.
Claire? Anything you'd like to say at the end to wrap up here?
So we kind of defer to you, but we would request whether 4413 come to play here in that statute. Lot coverage is not specifically identified as one of the areas that you can provide review. So we are not sure if that can if we can use that route, or if not, to ask for the waiver or the variance as Sharon defended. So
As to the variance,
those are,
we'll get that, but you will take that 4413 under advisement.
okay, appreciate it.
Anybody else want to ask any questions? All right, well, with that, we'll close the application, close the hearing on this application, and we'll be deliberating on it shortly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Claire.
Mary, do we tackle other business in the meeting, or do we do that? It's like this.
You absolutely may.
So the last item on our agenda is other business, which is a consideration of new or amended standard permit conditions. I think we can I think they're all very good. I'm actually very happy with the change in number 4, having 2 appeals to the Vermont Supreme Court specifically on that language, not from this town, but from others. And I'm glad for having that standard language included. And I guess if anyone has any questions or changes to them, talk about them. I have a question about number 12, Mary.
I'm not certain I'm equipped to respond to it. I can.
All right.
The draft was by the zoning manager. I know it reflects some changes already to the existing ordinance, some changes to stormwater regulations, and then the third group of changes were what was recommended.
Who's the zoning manager?
Scott.
Scott. That's why we can't trust him.
He wrote the draft.
Do we have to adopt this?
Do we have to adopt these or not?
This is informational, right?
You may take time to review them, but I'd be looking for affirmation.
All right.
So it's good to look for affirmation.
Yeah. I think
Everywhere.
I don't think we need a formal motion, but I think these are good changes and I look forward to seeing them in, I guess you'll just normally say in the staff report, standard conditions 1 through 15.
That's correct.
I'm fine with that in future applications, subject to this draft. I guess if anybody wants other changes, I'll put them to Scott. I guess make a motion. I move that we approve these changes as our standard conditions.
Sorry, so I don't think I understood that at first. The idea is that at the end of all the applications, rather than.
No,
No,
a lot of
right now.
it does right now. So if you look at the end of the staff approval, they'll have some specific conditions, and then very often they'll just say, as a catch-all, our standard conditions 1 through 15, and then when I get the final permits assigned, I'll see a copy of these inserted at the final decision, the permit, you know. All of these will be copied and printed out, but they just don't put it in our staff report. I understand. Okay, repeat extra. Great.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all those in favor? That's it.
That's affirmation.
Formal affirmation.
Yeah, no problem.
So with that, we'll close our public meeting for the evening.